Welcome to, I guess, my first speed build, so this could either be kind of alright, or it's really going to be something and my brain's going to break, but we will see. So I have just started a mini-series on my channel for like a Sims 3 murder mystery type challenge. I had this thought of just having a whole load of different townies in this house and having kind of a rule set that I'd be on the lookout for to see what would count as them being suspicious and killing off another Sim. Now, obviously, Sims can't kill each other, but that's why I'm there. I'm kind of, I'm puppeteering this whole thing. I'm keeping a lookout, but I wanted it to take place in kind of just one of those classic manor houses that you see in all the murder mystery shows, or that I saw anyway growing up. I will pop this inspiration picture up on the screen. This was kind of what I was going off, but I was you will have seen, I was doing a lot of terraining. I don't really know why, but I just kind of wanted it to be on the hill. You can see the stairs in the picture that lead up to the house, and I really wanted to do that, but I haven't really extensively built in this game in so long, so it was kind of a struggle to figure out where the stairs would go, and then it kind of just felt weird because the driveway doesn't actually now line up with where the road meets. But to be fair, this house just has to function for the challenge, so it's kind of meant to be more in the middle of nowhere than it is. What I will always do as well is I will just place a massive block of foundation. If you haven't built in The Sims 3, if you played The Sims 4 a lot, you can move those buildings around however you want. You can really easily adjust it. Sims 3, once it's in place, you better like it, because unless you're planning to rebuild that whole thing, you are stuck with it. That's why I also go around and I'll usually put in like dummy doors, dummy railings, a lot of dummy stuff that I'm gonna replace later, which is why these doors is kind of what we're dealing with. You'll see I'm gonna go through a whole load of different windows to actually get to what I want. That is like hands down the one thing that I always do when I'm building, is I will find some kind of inspiration picture, not usually for the inside, but just so the outside has like a nice and interesting shape to it. And then I'll kind of block the layout inside afterwards and tweak it. Like, I don't have a picture of the back of the house, but I decided to add in a sunroom. I wanted there to be an additional balcony, so that ends up going on top as well. This one was kind of a weird one to lay out. Like, I wanted a nice big entranceway, which is why I have the two staircases. You can do some kind of L-shaped stairs, but you have to use a weird cheat for it. So I probably would have done that, but I wasn't looking. I just decided to get building and get this done, which is why that's kind of what the entrance looks like. And then upstairs, I'm trying to work in as many bedrooms as possible. This challenge was meant to be a full household, so I needed to sleep 8 Sims. They weren't necessarily all gonna be couples either, but I think as I started building, you'll notice that I'm like, I'll just go with as many bedrooms as I can get, and we will just roll with it. So it ends up having 4 bedrooms, all with bathrooms. The extra bedroom comes on at a random point when I just realized I don't have enough space. Oh my god, and doing the roof. Doing the roof was such a time. It felt fine, and then I realized I needed another bedroom again. So I do end up slotting a bedroom into that roof space where there is actually flat roof. I managed to squeeze one more bedroom in there. I don't know how, but the game let me, and I was very glad about that. I then started getting crafty with this attic bedroom of like, can I actually give it a window, or is it going to be a space that just gets no natural daylight? So I tried doing some little bump outs, but again, even with like the move objects cheat on and stuff, I could not get windows to be allowed to sit up against the roof. So I make it a little bit of a feature, but sadly, you don't get any natural light. If you decide to go up into the attic, you better just be happy in that cozy little room. You better not want to see the world, because you're just not doing that. So you can see I've now added on this extra bedroom I was talking about onto the other side of the building, which, to be fair, this building could have been way bigger. I actually went quite tame because I just find it really hard to furnish really big houses, and I didn't really want the Sims getting too lost. Because of the challenge, I need to be seeing all of them and what they're doing, so it's kind of nicer having them all a little bit more close-knit, and it makes it more challenging. The whole premise of this challenge is that they have to be suspicious, they have to be in that like perfect 2 alone situation, so one of them gets killed off. So it's kind of, it makes it a little bit more interesting. Otherwise, I think they just wouldn't really interact with each other if they had too much to do. I did also decide last minute what would be quite fun was to just put a basement in, because what's better in a kind of pretty much a murder house than having a secret basement that only a few people might come across or know about? Maybe plant some little trap type things down there that might get an unsuspecting Sim and kill them out of the game. you know, I thought it was a nice little touch. I was trying to think of various ways in which this could just be a place Sims might just come to their own, you know, graves without me interfering. So of course I had to add a pool. I go through and I do, I think, all of the landscaping first. I think I have a hard time with these stairs. I decide to change where these stairs go a few times and fiddle with it and just lean on something a little bit more random, because it just feel like you didn't need the layout as it was. I don't know. I'm still not convinced on the stairs. If I could move the whole house, I would possibly move it, shove it in a corner and just have a sloping driveway, but the stairs have to stay. They're already there. I can't move the house. It is what it is. The other thing is I can't have these Sims leave. So I knew I needed to fence in the whole thing. I thought a celebrity gate would be enough. You don't see it in this, but actually when I've started playing, I changed the front gate and just made it to be locked for everyone, because I wanted to just make sure Sims wouldn't leave. And to be honest, if you lock a normal gate, Sims can't come in either. So they are trapped. They are well and truly stuck in this house. I didn't need a celebrity gate. So it looks dorky in the playthrough, I will say, because I changed it for 2 little gates. But in this one, you see it has got the celebrity gate. I also really wish that I had some kind of vines to put on the outside of the house, because it just looks like the type that would be covered in ivy and stuff like that, but I don't have that in the game. I don't have any CC for that, so I kind of just wanted to make it this kind of brown stony color. It is a lot of brown. There's black stone around the corners, and I will say the one thing I absolutely hate, maybe there's a mod for this, I don't know, but it is the fact that those chimneys are that red brick. Like, you can't change the color of the chimneys. I think the fireplaces that came with Supernatural are the ones that have that brick. There's a couple of modern ones that have like white instead, but you can't just change the color of that. So on certain builds, if you want to have a fireplace, it really sticks out. Unless you build a wall around that whole thing, it sometimes just looks so ugly. That's why I swap all the fireplaces, I think, in this to either be supernatural ones or those little metal ones, so it's just a little metal pipe instead of being a massive bright red brick square. You can see I've gone through, I'm like changing all the details now. I'm changing the railings, I change all of like the window panes and the doors and stuff, just so it's all the same kind of wood as those supernatural windows are. And I just go through, these are like my go-to landscape bushes. I want to say these might be a supernatural one. There's only a couple of bushes that come in the actual game that aren't like CC ones, that kind of feel like just generic bushes, and one of them's kind of crusty looking. So this is usually the one. I just place it everywhere. As you can see, it is going in every little corner. That's the other one, is that one with like the red almost looking kind of twigs in it, and it's fine, but it just kind of, again, it just makes everything look a little bit sad. And I didn't want this to be creepy, you know, like the Goth's house. I wanted this to just be like country house that has become a holiday house you can rent out if you have a whole load of friends to go on holiday with. Kind of that vibe. Because the thing with this house is it's not meant to be a creepy house, it's just meant to be a big house that all these friends have decided to go away for, and in typical murder mystery fashion, one of them ends up dead, and then our detective comes on, stays in the house, everyone's on lockdown, whilst the rest of the cast just also come to their graves. Basically. It makes my detective sound not very good. To be honest, she's only there so I have someone to play with, because I'm not allowed to touch the other people. So now I have to go through and do all of the darn furnishing for this house. I always find it easier if I'm building for a family specifically, and I can kind of decorate it to what I think their tastes are, customize it with things I think they'd like or things they've gathered whilst I've been playing with them. But when I'm kind of just building it as a generic house, that's when I can struggle a little bit. This one wasn't too bad because it was just, again, it had a purpose, but coming up with the different colors for the rooms and what to put where was quite a time, I will say. Obviously in this game, you can customize like everything and change the color of it all, but sometimes that's like too much choice. And I'm like, I would just happily go with a swatch today because I have been customizing for 3 hours. You can see I'm making this kind of like a little sunroom. I wanted like a few different spaces they had some stuff to do in. I go in and I'm adding in a chess table. I think I was really struggling where it would fit because Move Objects was breaking my heart in lying to me about where the chairs could go. But I wanted different pockets of spaces for people to kind of just be hanging out together. Again, almost try and bait people into being alone with one another and maybe just being a little bit suspicious for my liking. I'm finally moving on to the inside, which I kind of I usually do all the landscaping stuff first and just leave the inside. And then I was deciding on, are we gonna go super dark in here? Is it gonna be kind of more modern? It was kind of tricky to decide, but I kind of started with that base tile in the foyer and then I kind of just went from there. What I usually do is also just pick a floor for a majority of the main areas and bedrooms and stuff, and that's what they all get. It's only when it comes to like bathrooms, maybe kitchens or entranceways that it might have something a little bit different, like more of a signature tile, something like that. It left a good space as well to have like a statue as you walk in. Like, this is a fancy house. It's not gonna have a whole lot of clutter, but it needed something to keep it interesting. I also, in the actual game, go and change that for a Philosopher's Stone because you can get that from a lifetime wish. So I cheated my Sims thing and I did unlock that because that's just another option for them to die. Just if they have the right thing and they try to use it, it was an opportunity. So I put that in there. It looks pretty cool, so you won't see it in this, but if you watch the playthrough, I changed that over and I put one of them in the basement as well. I needed an opportunity for Sims to just come to their own demise without me. Now, the kitchen, I'm gonna be honest with you, is possibly my favorite. Like, I would happily have this kitchen. It's got like a green tone on the walls throughout most of the spaces, except for the main living, which is that like kind of darker, warmer space. But this is all just like wooden, beigey kind of colored counters, and I go to town on the cabinets in here. This is actually a CC cabinet from, I want to say, around The Sims 3. I've gotten a lot of stuff from them recently, and it's just been very nice to have some basic looking things in the game. I got some kind of food clutter things so I could make it look like slightly more lived in, because I always feel that some of the spaces, like, there's a decent chunk of decor that you get standard, but sometimes just clutter things, foodie kitchen junk things, or like desk stuff, sometimes a bit lacking. So I've been slowly gathering that. You'll see I have like olive oil bottles, cereal, like some pots and pans that would be out, because I don't know about you, my kitchen is never like completely clean on the counters. There's always something, there's an appliance, there's something I've left out, even if it's just like a cup, you know, it just makes it feel homely. And then next to the kitchen, I wanted to have a bar in the dining room. I considered having a completely separate room for this, but I thought I didn't need another room to deal with, so I end up having it in the same room. One of the rules for the challenge is that if a sim makes drinks and other sims drink the drinks, those names will either be like coin flipped or spun on a wheel to decide their fate, and they've been poisoned in the game. You have to use your imagination a bit, but I was just hopeful like they'd all arrive and that would be the perfect opportunity for someone to just go along and kick things off. And honestly, you should watch episode 1, because boy, did they have a time in this house. So I go through and I pop another fireplace in as well, because I'm very for the idea of having maybe some fireplace incidents. My detective isn't a firefighter. They have to fend for themselves in this. So I maybe just put some around the place, just near enough to some items that maybe there'd be a bit of an incident. I have a big one in the living room and then the one in the dining room. Again, matching chimneys. That's the best chimney I could choose. So it still stands out a bit too much for my liking, but it is what it is. So the living room was one of these weird ones. Again, it was such a big space. I knew I wanted a big piano. It makes sense in a house like this that there'd be something like that, just a grand piano in the corner. But then I kind of had this weird pocket which I put the fireplace in the end, but I kind of thought, do they need a TV? Are they going to be kind of bored? Will it be boring to watch them if there's not really things they can interact with? But it does mean they would be forced to interact with each other, which obviously is what I wanted. But I also needed them to be able to cater for their needs in some way as well, and just shake it up a bit. They're not going to do the same thing every day necessarily, so I go through, find like bookcases. I do eventually put a TV in, but my biggest thing was kind of, I had this massive space in the middle, which I didn't know what to do with. I could have left it, but I decided to put an extra set of sofas just as like a little chatting space. Again, in a house like this, you'd probably just have the area broken up with multiple like seating little arrangements, things like that, if not to build just a whole nother room. I could have cut the room in half, but it just didn't feel necessary. Again, maybe not my favorite, but I do like it in the end. I put a rug in, again, makes it feel like its own little space, which I suck at designing rugs in this game. I feel like there's so many patterns to choose from. You know when you just want one of those classic, like traditional, the red, the blue, the floral type stuff on a rug? that doesn't really exist in here. So it's kind of a struggle when I need a rug for a space on like what pattern to choose. Then I move upstairs. Again, this is one of those weird times. I have a big corridor, a big landing space up there, which just, I don't really have anything to put there, but I just go, you know what? This house is rich. It just needs some decorative stuff. So I end up just putting little statues, little bookcases, another little jelly bean plant ends up here as well. A couple of chairs, that kind of thing. There's obviously the stairway that also goes up to the attic, which I could have made wider, but I didn't. I thought that would be too much in that hallway because then you'd have to really squeeze past and it would feel really cramped. But now moving on to the bedrooms, I wanted them to almost have their own theme, also because then whilst I was playing, I could refer to certain rooms by their color rather than them all kind of being the same. So I start off with a red room. Mainly it was based around the wallpaper, and then I just saw this bed and pretty much left it the same, just tweaked like the sheets underneath to be a different kind of white. I go through and I just copy and paste that wood tone. That is what I do all the time. I'm not necessarily in my own house one to have matching sets like the bed and the tables match, but you know, things are a similar enough wood tone, and in this game it's just easier for me to just drag and drop all of those colors onto the same thing and then tweak it just a little bit if I feel I want to. Put a little chair next to the dresser as well. This bedroom does get a fireplace. I can't remember if you see it, or if you do not, I might just end up chucking it in there, but I do put a little like wood burning metal fireplace in this corner just because this room had that special little tower kind of feel to it, so I wanted this corner to be like cozy. It's maybe one of the posher rooms of the estate. Some of you might hate the fact that I have put archways going into the bathrooms. I have a reason for it, and it's purely just because I wanted to use some of those really massive curtains instead as like the door to it. There's part of me as well that feels like this house would have been renovated to be for today's use. You know, if you go to like an older house, a lot of the rooms kind of like they're secret rooms. They don't necessarily make sense on a floor plan. It's a little bit strange. I almost wanted it to be like that, and maybe that wasn't even a bathroom to start with, but they weren't going to add a door to it because it's cramped in the space. I don't know. I was just getting into that kind of mindset, and you end up seeing the sink that I wanted to use doesn't fit. So that sink goes into the bedroom. Again, a little bit strange, but I've seen it. I feel like that's an older thing that used to happen, was there'd be baths or sinks within the bedrooms. I don't know, it's kind of charming. I like it. The house has a weird feel to it, okay? It's one of those places that you'd go on a holiday and be like taking pictures to your friends like, why is there a sink in my bedroom? You'll see in this bathroom as well, I have a chimney to contend with, so I'm kind of trying to just do the layout around that. I didn't want to have to block it off because it would mean the bathroom was like 2 squares by 3, and that would have been really pokey. I kind of then get sick of furnishing, so I decide to go through and I change all the different wallpapers, so I kind of have a color to go off of. I'm kind of picking patterns without really changing the color of them. Again, it kind of just eliminates some choice, because I could look at all the patterns and then try and decide what colors I'm gonna make them, but it's like those green little flowers, that's how they came on the swatch, so I just worked around it, and it made it just a little bit easier, and I didn't have to think as much. So I kind of end up having the red room, there's more of a beigey orange type of room, there's the pink and green room, and then there's another, I don't really have a name for it, it's kind of greenish. It's a greeny yellow pink room. It's a strange one. It's just a really nice pattern on the wall, but it is kind of greenish, but there's also blue, but there's also pink. So you could lean into any of those colors. So that can just be, that's just like the green room. That's all I call it. I was loving using all of these 4 poster beds though. I will say, I don't think I used too much CC in the bedrooms and stuff. It's mainly just the kitchen and some of the stuff in the bathroom, like those baths I was using, they're CC, but all of the bedroom stuff, that was all just in the game anyway. It suits the feel of this. Again, a lot of supernatural stuff ended up in here, I feel like, because it's just that vibe. I actually really like this pink room. It just feels really regal in the end. It's kind of the odd one out, I feel like. The others are cozy, you know, 4 posters, slightly luxurious, but this one, they just went to town. Like, look at the trim on that bed. I didn't want to end up putting too much stuff in the bedrooms either, because again, I didn't necessarily want them hiding away in their bedrooms doing stuff, but I didn't want it to look just like bed, bedside tables, done. So they all get a dresser, some of them get chairs, this one gets a sofa, and obviously like some artwork and stuff, just so it feels cozier and not just massively empty, like this table at the end of the bed and stuff, just a few bits and pieces in there. That's why I am glad I didn't make this house any bigger than I did, because if the bedrooms were any bigger, that would be a struggle. This one ends up having that orange swatch. I almost used that orange swatch in the wallpaper, but I thought, let me go in like reverse. We'll make sure the bed is like a focal point maybe, but this one's meant to be more of the neutral room, I guess. The other ones feel almost like extra luxurious. This one's maybe the afterthought of all the bedrooms. But this is where you see I'm trying to figure out what curtain I'm gonna put, because I didn't measure these on the archways. I just really loved the archways. So luckily those curtains kind of fit. They're heavy ones. If you drew them, people ain't just gonna be peering through the curtain, but also this is gonna be like couples here. So it doesn't really matter that there's not actually a door to your bathroom. Some of you might just think that's a weird thing to do, and I get it, okay? I do get it. I wouldn't do that in every single one of the houses, but this one just, I don't know why, I felt like it needed it. I'm just going through and doing some extra decorative stuff. Again, these kind of just, I just needed to put some things in these spaces so it didn't feel weirdly empty, so maybe these were some previous owners. Who even knows, but a couple of paintings up there, little coffee table with some random magazines, there's some weird jars of stuff. But we don't talk about what's in those jars. The attic bedroom, I kept that same deep green wallpaper as downstairs. I think I just didn't really know what other color to do, and I thought this attic was just probably used once to store some stuff in. So this is maybe the last bedroom anyone would even want to stay in, really, in this house. It's kind of, they made it a bedroom so they could just have that 5-bedroom listing, you know? It obviously doesn't have a bathroom, but I was like, let me put a little rocking chair in, put a little dresser in as well, all like the bare essentials, but you're not really gonna see this that often. This is purely for my detective to sleep in. This is her room, but otherwise, no one's gonna really be up there. Wanted to make sure I had like some electronics in. I end up putting like a record player in as well up here, and I go, and that's where the jelly bean plant comes back again. So there's one on each floor just in case. I also end up putting in this magic mirror from Supernatural, mainly because I couldn't remember if it does anything to them. I didn't think they could die from it, but I thought, you know what, just in case, let me pop it in. And let me say, they had a wonderful time interacting with that. They were getting makeovers. I think Nancy Landgrab had about 3 different makeovers on the first day. Mainly for the basement, I was just finding like clutter stuff. I also went into Buy Debug and I did get the wine crafting kind of machine, whatever that's called, because I thought obviously this would be like an old wine cellar, something like that. Put the logs in there. I kind of just put a load of junk in here. But to be honest, the main reason for this was so that I could have a Murphy bed somewhere. That's another one of those items that your Sims can just accidentally die from, and I've had it happen many, many times when my Sim has gone off to uni and they've just died on the first day because they fell victim to the Murphy bed. So I wanted to put an extra one down here, mainly for if they're not all couples, someone will have to use this bed. Someone might just decide they want to use this bed anyway, so it's just gonna be just a test to see what would happen. You may have also noticed I put a sneaky little skeleton underneath that pile of logs. I thought that was just a fun touch. I know it's there. I don't think you really see it all that much. Probably no one seeing the playthrough will see it, but I know, and that's all that matters. And I just put a whole load of random junk in here, a whole load of leftovers from like renovations. There's some stone stuff, some random clothing, some books, just stuff. That's all I wanted down here was stuff. That is pretty much most of the build, but last minute I decided to add a bathroom downstairs because there wasn't one at this point. The only bathrooms were the ones attached to the bedroom, and I thought that would just be a little bit annoying maybe. So I swiped that same tile from the main hallway. I just changed it to all be green though. I got rid of the red and I put in like a tub, a toilet, and a sink in there. But yeah, this was purely so they could do it downstairs and they didn't have to keep going up and downstairs, because let me tell you, in my very veggie legacy right now, I have been dealing with having a bathroom on the first floor and none on the second, and it's been a time. Then lastly, I go through, I put a telescope up on the balcony and I put a couple of deck chairs. One of the rules is if my Sims are alone at nighttime on that balcony, one of them will die. So I wanted them to be kind of tempted to go out there. I don't know if a meteor can hit them if they're on a balcony, but again, it was an option. I would be curious if it could. And of course, a little stereo by the pool, because what better place to put one? But yeah, that's the house done. Again, I love that kitchen. That kitchen is like my favorite thing ever. And the sunroom. I need to add more sunrooms into my game. I don't have like a conservatory type roof, but it's close enough for what I need. I really like it. And again, there's just enough stuff in there. I feel like I could probably have put some more rugs and stuff down, but again, I don't really like designing rugs. I need to just find some standard rugs that I don't need to change very often, and then I'd place them more. But right now, I was just creator tooled out at this point. And I think it's that nice mix of trying to be somewhat traditional with the colorings in places and like the wood paneling, but not being like, it's not doom and gloom here. That's not what this was for. And just like the nice pool outside, again, the terrain is pretty extreme. If you look at the back of that lot, it's a pretty sheer drop, but we don't look. We don't look, we don't judge. There's a very high chance I might end up using this for a family at some point. I'm actually pretty fond of it. I am kind of bummed that I made it on such a big lot though, because if I ever want to use this now, I have to make sure it's on like a 64 by 64 lot. I can't do anything about that unless I just rebuild it again. So yeah, that's that. And if you want to see it again, we've just started doing this little challenge. It was a really fun first episode. I was not expecting what happened to happen, so definitely check that out. It will be at the end of this video and I'll pop it in the description as well. In the future, I would maybe just speed build the main shell of the house and then decorate in real time with you. So if you prefer that style, cool. If you like this was fine to do as well, so I'd be interested to know. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. As always, I hope you enjoyed it and I will see you very soon in another one. Bye.